Hey folks, it's B. Welcome to B Recovers. B Recovers from binging. That's where we finally ended up with the name. So in this video, I'll be talking about my experiences with going all in, just like Stephanie Buttermore, and my pros and cons so far. So I have been going all in since basically a little bit before Halloween, and I've gained around 43, 44, 45 maybe pounds. I'll be retiring my scale shortly, and I will kind of get into that in a bit. But I wanted to give you the pros and cons so far, and I'll give you a little bit of history first, a comparison, like why am I comparing myself to Stephanie Buttermore? Basically, there's two reasons why. One, we both decided to go all in, and two, we were basically both in starvation mode. We were very, very hungry ladies. So Stephanie Buttermore is, for those of you who don't know, is a figure athlete, or she basically lifts weights and trains and gets very, very lean. And she had gotten very, very lean and was concerned about the effects it was having on her body, and in particular the extreme hunger. And that is actually how I found Stephanie Buttermore's content, was because I was so overcome and overwhelmed by my extreme hunger. She never said that she had an eating disorder. I do, or did, or in the spectrum of. So in my case, I started at 191 pounds, and I was coming off of 9 months of hyperemisis gravadarium, or HG for short, which is extreme nausea and vomiting in pregnancy. I had lost about 40 some odd pounds during that pregnancy. That wasn't visible until after I gave birth. I was in and out of the hospital for malnutrition, and they don't say malnutrition, it's actually for dehydration. I was on tons of medication, steroids to make sure that the baby, if the baby was born early, the baby got steroids, I got steroids, feeding lines, the whole thing. And so one of the things about HG is that it doesn't it eats fat, but it also actually eats muscles, and organs are muscles. So one of the reasons why all in appealed to me, aside from a background in working with eating disorders and seeing how all in the body restoration process worked for women recovering from anorexia, was that I knew that I needed to do some restoration refeeding for my physical organs. In addition to that, for the first 4.5 months postpartum, I was only able to eat liquids because of the inflammation of 9 months of vomiting up to 40 times a day was so bad that I was on liquids. So more than a year of very restricted, very limited eating, and frankly, very not nutrient dense by any means. It was a very shitty diet, frankly. And when you have HG, the doctors say you eat what you can eat. Like there's no guilt, there's no shame. If all you can eat is Cheetos and Coke, then the doctors are like, then that's what you got to do, girl. But it's not really. Well, I think we can all agree that just Cheetos and Coke is not good for anybody. So that's where I started. And I just wanted to make that distinction because I think, again, another thing, trigger warning, I do talk about weights and numbers and things like that because I do find that helpful for my recovery. And I also find it helpful because I found Stephanie Buttermore going all in, and she's like probably more than a decade younger than me and super thin to begin with. So Stephanie Buttermore going all in gets a yay! And this is no shade to Stephanie Buttermore. I think she's fabulous and I love what she did, and I like her content, pre, post, all of it. I just love her. But B at 191 pounds says she's gonna go in, and people go, don't you think you're too big for that? No, I don't. If you actually know science, you know that I was starving, I'm breastfeeding an infant, and I'm running after a 3-year-old. I have every right to feed myself once I could start eating again. So once I started eating again, mostly what I craved, honestly, the biggest thing I craved was a tuna fish sandwich. I just wanted to eat like an actual sandwich. That's where we were at. Like, it was so basic. For the first little while, it was very much larger portions of eating during the day and then some binge eating at night. And then after about 2.5 weeks, that tapered off. I gained about 43 or so pounds in less than a month. So that tells me that my body like was in starvation mode, and I think I was averaging anywhere from 5,000 to 3,000 calories a day. Generally speaking, it would be really difficult. And again, I was trying not to count, but I know I've been dieting for so long that it's hard not to be aware. And I think a lot of that was just my body holding on to it. And there was like really weird bloat and edema and all that other stuff going on. So who knows how much of that weight would actually be fat, and right? Like, who knows? Anyway, longest intro ever. I'm gonna start with the cons, and there was actually only one con, and that was that gaining weight was really scary. So as I said, I gained about 43 pounds and went up a whole clothing size. Had to buy, so I went from went up to 2 or 3 clothing sizes, but from my pre-HG weight went up 1 clothing size. So I had to buy some new clothes, and I had to accept it. And it was such a rapid weight gain. I felt like everyone was looking at me, you know, like my neighbors were like, 3 weeks ago she's wearing a size 10, or, you know, looks like a size 10, and now all of a sudden she's a size 16. Like, you know, like I'm going to preschool. And I especially felt like that way around strangers. And it was very much the external chatter. The people who knew me, you know, I'm 43, so at this stage in my life, I've cultivated my friendships with people who are smart, understanding, see the world the same way that I do. So the people who know me understood what was happening, and they were like, you gotta eat, because they saw me in and out of, you know, the HG experience. And they knew that they would see me and know that I was starving. So there wasn't any feeling of shame around them, but I felt like everybody else in the world was looking at me and going, that woman is gross and out of control. And every time I would have those thoughts, I really had to police them and really give myself love and compassion and say, there's no context. Like, A, probably they don't notice, don't care. B, it doesn't matter. What you're doing is a form of love for self, and you know, who cares what they know or think. So now let's get to the pros. So as you can see, I only had one con, and the pros really outweighed the cons so far. So my first con was that I have always thought of myself as a bottomless pit, or I started thinking of myself that way probably in like mid-childhood. There was a Garbage Pail Kids card collection. Again, I'm always dating myself on this thing. And there was one character that was a girl who, like, she lived in a garbage can, and she was basically gluttonous, and everything that was bad about a human being was her. And I would look at it, and I would always try to get rid of that card, because I was like, if I have that card and people see I have that card, they'll realize that I'm her, because I'm a bottomless pit. And I had gotten that message in childhood, and at first it was praised. So for the first part of my childhood, it was like, oh, she's such a good eater. You know, when she comes to my house, she has vegetables and eggs and, you know, toast and blah, blah, blah. She's a good eater. And then all of a sudden, around 8 or 9 years old, it was like, she should stop eating. Not because I was in any way a large child. I was actually very average sized. But women were telling me, in order to prevent becoming fat, you need to stop eating that way. So people were already giving me that advice at that age. And so then I started to think, well, I really like eating. I really like food. I'm a girl who loves her groceries, right? And so I thought, they must be right. I'm a bottomless pit. And here's this card that kind of shows me what I'm going to become. During this process, I realized I'm not a bottomless pit. I will shut off, especially if I give myself unlimited free range. And there was a lot of foods and things that I did. I kind of really went after like my triggers. I just decided, like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go hard. So one of my big things is chocolate, and especially those like chocolate boxes that you're only supposed to get for, like, you know, big things like Valentine's Day and Christmas and stuff like that. And I bought myself a couple of those boxes of chocolates and gave myself permission to just eat them. And did that with a couple of my other trigger foods. And now I'm like, I love you, box of chocolates, but not right now. So I will turn off eventually. I do turn off, and I proved it to myself. Another pro was that I discovered some new and different patterns. So a different pattern was that in the past, when I was in a different phase of recovery at a different time in my life, I was like, you know, it was like on the scale, on the journey there. But one of the things that I had found that really worked for me in terms of calming down my binges, I was eating well, but my mental wasn't there. That's what I'm trying to say about that time in my life in terms of what recovery looked like. I was eating 6 mini meals a day, and that was so diet culture back then, but because now we're all intermittent fasting, but it worked for me. I didn't have kids. I could prepare these little, you know, nice boutique style meals that were just, you know, like special just for me, and knew what I needed and wanted, and they were filling and blah, 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 blah. Now, no. Interestingly enough, I have 2 little ones. One of them's only 7 months old. And the idea of making another small fucking snack makes me want to take a sledgehammer to a bag of goldfish in rage. I just like to have 3 meals a day. And what I find is another pattern that hasn't changed is that I need a really, 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 really unculturally acceptable amount of food in the morning. So typically like 2 eggs, hearty pieces of bread with lots of protein and fiber, hummus, avocado, and then I might even top that up with a protein shake. And then I might need like a full sandwich, like a really big hearty sandwich. I don't have the time or the desire to have like a side salad and a soup or something like that. That's pre-kid. That's something I would have done back then. Now it's like, let's get this shit on the road. And then I do enjoy a lighter dinner. And the other pattern though that I figured out that has been life-changing is thinking about food. And this goes into the mental aspect of it. So for my whole life, when I would start thinking about food, I would get enraged with myself. It would be like, you just ate 2 hours ago. You are a bottomless pit. You are a human garbage can. You're going around just thinking about food all the time, you know. Oh God, like what can we do with you? Let's stretch this out. And I was always trying to stretch out the period of time between meals and tell myself, you're not hungry, don't think about food, don't think about food. When how much easier would it have been if I had known, because I did not know this, that me thinking about food meant that I was hungry and I would probably need to eat in the next half hour, and that my body doesn't really, because in my mind, again, the 6 mini meal thing, diet culture was always, you should only need to eat at it should be a 3-hour window between meals, never 2.5. And so I would be getting hungry maybe at 2.5 hours, especially because I was eating these super mini portions a lot of the time. And then judging myself for it, not realizing that I was just hungry and like I needed to eat. It was that simple. And so by just eating then, instead of stretching it out for like another hour or 2, and then accumulating some of that hunger, means that I'm not binging at night because I ate during the day when I needed to eat. It's so simple, it's mind-blowing, but it has been making such a huge difference, physically and emotionally. Another pro is that my obsession with food, weight, and body image has actually decreased tenfold. Once I started to accept that this weight gain was happening and was here, the first thing that I did was figure out how to dress this new body. I'm lucky that I'm stay-at-home mom right now, so I didn't have to buy professional clothes, because buying professional clothes with this new body would have been difficult. Okay, so your girl is very busty. I am nursing right now, so that does make me bustier, but I was just born very busty. And so dressing this body is difficult. It's just, your proportions are just like, you gotta try to create some kind of something. And so it was difficult, but it was, my first thing was, I need to find some clothes that make me feel really, really good about myself. So I did that. And then after that, the body weight and the look side of things faded away. And when I was in the extreme hunger phase, I was like making Pinterest meal plans and like doing all these recipes. I bought an air fryer because I'm thinking in my mind, what I'm trying to communicate is that period of time when I was postpartum, but was still having to have liquids for the first 4.5 months. So the nausea and vomiting had gone away mostly, but I was still vomiting sometimes and still having to eat liquids because of the damage from the HG. So I was obsessed with food. I was so hungry. I was like those people on the Minnesota experiment. Like I just couldn't stop thinking about food, recipes, eating. What am I going to eat when I can eat? Food. And then judging and worrying that I was a bottomless hole and da-da-da-da-da. That's all calmed down. I have not made a Pinterest meal plan in months. And I'm just like cooking and grocery shopping based on whatever we need, and it's super easy. We live within walking distance of grocery stores, so if I realize, oh, we are gonna have chicken tonight, surprise, I just walk over to the store and get some chicken. It's no bigs. There's just not a lot of overthinking about it. Another pro is realizing that my body is much smarter than I am in my head. I've said this before and I'll say it again. A lot of the years of struggle with an eating disorder was that intellectually I knew all of these things. I knew about nutrition. I knew that you shouldn't be unkind to yourself, but my heart just didn't believe it. I'm sorry if you can hear the baby. My husband's with her. I would never leave my baby screaming by herself. She's just having a moment. But having this trust in my body, like that one piece before of realizing that those thoughts of food meant that I was hungry, is creating this sense of trust of like, oh, I can trust you, body. And I'm just going to take a step back because you got this. You don't need me in the middle. You don't need me complicating and overthinking things as I am wont to do. It's created a huge sense of confidence. And I think that was what led to me being able to let go of having gained 40 some odd pounds. Because it's like, oh, I don't have to worry about this. I just have to make it work. Very liberating. Another pro, one of the best pros, I'm not gonna lie, is pooping. Well, with pregnancy, you kind of get constipated to begin with, a normal pregnancy, because your body is holding on to the food through the digestion process longer because it's trying to leach out as much of the nutrients as it can. And then you add in hyperemisis, gravadarium, which also really slows down your digestive process, and all of that gets messed with. And so sometimes and then you're on medication as well, which also messes with the gastric emptying. Like there's a whole chain effect of things. And so sometimes when I'm with HG, I would not poop I'm not lying, 3 or 4 weeks at a time, because there wasn't really much there to poop. And it would just kind of gather and then painfully exit the scene. Similarly, during the 4.5 month period of time when I was only able to have liquids postpartum. Now I have bowel movements, and I can't even tell you, like, because it was basically over a year of not pooping on a regular basis and going 2 to 3 weeks on average without pooping. Pooping is awesome. It is very underrated. It feels great to just take a dump. I said it. I like pooping, and thank you, natural intuitive eating, for letting me poop again. Okay, so I'm gonna end with the last piece, and it ties, these are my notes, it ties everything all in together. And again, so I do go into weights and numbers and things like that because I do find it helpful for me. So I'm probably going to be retiring my scale. Actually, I'm going to be retiring my scale. I reached my highest weight of 230 pounds, and I have started to taper down. I have lost about 8 or 9 pounds without me doing and being involved, without my brain stepping in. And once I saw that, like, I'm not a bottomless pit, I'm not going to gain back up to 325 pounds because that was my highest weight when I was binge eating. I can be trusted, and I can listen to the wisdom of my body, and it's safe. It's safe to go here and take this journey. For me, I decided, okay, I can retire the scale. I can trust this process. And I hope that by putting the scale away, I can go even deeper and take it even further of listening and trusting. And it's not about weight loss anymore. It's not about weight loss anymore. The pro is that I'm finally, after all these years, my whole life, it's safe to have a relationship with my body. And it's safe to listen. Well, it was always there for the taking, but it didn't feel safe for me to reach out and grab it and just trust in myself and trust in my body. And now I see that my body is an incredible machine that does not need me fucking around with it. And that is so freeing. So I'll be retiring my scale, and you won't be hearing solid numbers from me from here on in because I won't know. And for all I know, it could go up, it could go down, it could stay where it is. I don't know, but I trust. And I just hope that this was good information for anyone who ever does watch this channel, if anyone ever does. I'll continue. I'm going to continue doing this just because it's been so amazing, and I hope one day that someone maybe sees it, especially someone who's kind of feeling afraid to take the leap because they feel like they have a lot to lose, that they'll go from mildly acceptable body to completely unacceptable, socially unacceptable body, and really needs to see someone who's like relatable doing this, and that like you're not gonna eat and eat and eat till you explode, because you won't. So thank you, and I'll be back with another video pretty soon.